Well, if there ever was going to be an episode that demonstrated how much this show takes its cues from old western to samurai flicks, this would be the one. How's it going, everybody? This is Phil, and I know I'm a little bit late with this one. Holiday weekend and everything kind of just slowed me down, and I was kind of running around doing a whole bunch of things, but I definitely wanted to get this up before episode 5 comes out. It would only make sense, and I didn't want to skip this episode because I think it was a little bit important to go over it and talk about it, because we get the introduction of the character Cara Dune in this episode, which we've all kind of been waiting on to see what they do with this character. And given Disney's recent history with handling female leads in the Star Wars universe, it was very interesting to see what was going to happen. So this story, I'm not going to go too heavy into recapping it as far as this episode is concerned, because we've seen this before, right? This is a take on the Seven Samurai or the Magnificent Seven. We've seen this done before. It's been done before in the Clone Wars. So we've seen this story play out in the Star Wars universe before, at least for those people who've watched the Clone Wars. Basically, it's a village or farmers. They're being terrorized by a bunch of group of mercenaries or thugs, and they come, they pillage the town, and then they leave them with just enough to get by, and then they come back, and then it's wash, rinse, repeat, and then they find an outsider or some kind of a drifter or a traveler, or there's somebody they hear about, and they ask for his services to help him out. And they're outnumbered, so they end up training the villagers, and the villagers stand up for themselves, and they fight, and then they send off the bad guys, and it's a happy ending, and it's essentially what we get here in this episode. So as far as the basic plot is concerned, there's not a lot to cover, because we've seen it plenty of times, and we've seen it done better in other places as well. I mean, they did it in The Three Amigos. They did it in A Bug's Life. So it's been done. It's been done over and over and over again. In the beginning of the episode, we get the Mandalorian. He's in his ship now. He took off from that big fight that ensued when he was trying to make his escape. When the other Mandalorians came down and rescued him, he's with Baby Yoda, and they're looking for a place to kind of lay low for a while. And again, you get that cool little interaction between Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian, where he's flipping switches. He's in the cockpit, and he flips a switch, and the ship shakes, and he's like, don't touch that. And then he flips another switch, and he's like, don't touch that. He's like, cut it out. And then he kind of like looks at him, and he like leans over, and he flips the switch, and it's like he picks him up, he puts him to the side, and it's funny. I enjoy the levity of that character. Now, this episode was very heavy on the jokiness with Baby Yoda, and you got to be careful with that, because people are eating the character up, but if you go too far with it, it can become cheesy, right? It can become too much, and people can get tired of it. But right now, people are eating it up, and Baby Yoda he's fantastic. We all love him. So anyway, they find a planet, they go and land on it, and then that's when the Mandalorian gets off, and he's scouting. He takes Baby Yoda with him, even though he tells him to stay on the ship. He just follows him. He doesn't take direction very well. So they go into town, and there's not much doing there. Really, it's not a lot of activity, and that's where we first catch our glimpse of Cara Dune. She's sitting in this restaurant, cantina area where the Mandalorian is just kind of looking around, and he notices her. He asks about her, and he turns around. She's gone. So he tells the lady at the behind the counter, watch Baby Yoda, and he goes out to look for her. And as he's tracking her, he loses her steps, and that's when she gets the drop on him, and we have the fight. We have the confrontation between both characters. Now, this could go either way, depending on what side you are. Now, I understand everybody is snake bitten. We're all shell shocked with Disney, with the female characters and the forced diversity, and everything. We're gun shy, and I get it. And I was waiting. I was watching, this fight to see how it played out, and I was willing to give a little bit more leeway, because this is Filoni and Favreau, and I do want to see a strong female character that I can believe is a strong female character. Now, Gina Carano, she's a strong woman in real life, right? She's an MMA fighter. She's a Muay Thai fighter. She has winning records in both, substantially, and she can handle herself off screen. You look at Pascal, the lead character. He's 5'11", she's 5'8". She weighs like what, $140. He probably weighs like $170. So size-wise, and you look at her, she's got some guns, right? She's got, the way she looks like she could pound for pound maybe match up with him. Now, for the most part, we know how it goes in real life. More often than not, if a female is equally matched with a male as far as skills are concerned, the male is going to end up being typically stronger and come out ahead the majority of the time. But given the way that the fight took place, she's a former shock trooper. She has a skill set. She's become a mercenary. You know that being a mercenary for hire, she's probably had to handle other people who might have been stronger than her. So she uses certain tactics to gain an advantage, to gain leverage. So she took him by surprise. They kind of go back and forth. I'm willing to let it go that they kind of fought to a standoff. The one thing that was a little bit ridiculous was that, if anything here is a Mary Sue, it's her fist, because she punches him right in that Beskar helmet, and that should have shattered her knuckles into a million pieces. But all right, whatever. She gets away with that. They roll on the ground, they tussle, and they both end up with their blasters pointed at each other. And in the end, it gets broken up by Baby Yoda sipping some soup. But realistically, the Mandalorian wins that fight, because if she shoots him, it ricochets off his helmet, and if he shoots her, she has no head on her shoulders. It's over. So he did win the fight. There was nowhere for her to go. A standstill is he wins in that position. And I don't really have a problem with it, because here's the thing. In this type of storytelling, right? This happens a lot with superheroes. You have two heroes who've never met before. They don't know each other, and they end up kind of following each other, or not following each other, but they're on the same lead for a case, and they wind up at the same place, but they don't know who each other is. So one might assume that the other one is the person that they're after. And these two superheroes, they get into a fight, and they square off with each other, and usually they fight to a stalemate. And then later on down the line, because they established some kind of an early rapport with each other, they team up and they actually face the common enemy and they defeat him. So I think that's what was going on here in this episode. And you establish a character like Cara Dune as a worthy adversary, so that way later on she's more believable when it comes time for her character to be a valuable ally. So this is the way it goes, right? If you look at the Marvel movies, okay, in the first Avengers, we get Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man, and they all fight together in the woods. And then, they become allies, and then at the end, in Endgame, they all fight together against Thanos. And it's poetry in storytelling. That's how it works. It's probably what George Lucas alludes to, right? Some of the time he says, "Oh, it's poetry." But anyway, that's how it is. You establish it in one way, and then because you can square off with each other down the line, you understand each other's capabilities and power, and that's how you band together, and you know how to play off of each other's strengths. So I didn't have a problem with them setting up and establishing the character in that way. For me, it worked, and whatever, man. It's a kick-ass character. It's a female character who can hold her own. I mean, if you're gonna say you like Princess Leia and you like Ellen Ripley and you like Sarah Connor, what is she? She was a waitress. And all of a sudden, she's a military tactician. In between two movies, and she got locked away in a funny farm. I mean, who trained her, right? So, I mean, we got a cool, badass character in a Star Wars show. I don't have a problem with it. Look, I mean, as far as the character of Cara Dune is concerned, this episode could have been a hell of a lot worse. I mean, it wasn't anywhere near what we feared it was going to be, right? Never was the Mandalorian getting dragged around by his nose. He wasn't getting undercut by any kind of real snarky dialogue. She didn't make him look like a buffoon, at every turn. I mean, there was nothing like that. He didn't get cut down to make her look better. I mean, we never got a moment in this episode where the Mandalorian and Cara Dune were having a one-on-one conversation, and Cara Dune turns to him and she's just like, so I've been all over the galaxy and I've heard about the Mandalorians, but I've never actually seen one. Your reputation precedes you. The armor's pretty cool, though. This armor is perfection. It will be when it's made for a woman. Like, we never got anything like that. So, I mean, it could have been a hell of a lot worse. And we didn't get any of that, the Force is female bullshit in this episode. It just wasn't the case. So, anyway, after that, he goes to leave the planet, and then, again, you get the typical story here where the people who are being terrorized, they try to get his services. He takes the money, he gives it to her, and then, he says, I got a job for you. So they work together. And then they end up defeating the Marauders, the Klaatu who are constantly coming and, taking whatever they want and just having their way with these people. They teach them how to fire guns. The one woman in the village, she's a crack shot. Again, I mean, it's, if you want to make something, if you want to make us think about it, make us think about it. This is something we've seen a million times in movies before this culture came about. I mean, it's a trope, right? It's a trope in movies where there's a bunch of guys learning how to fight or something like that, and then this one woman seems to be able to have a skill that the guys are still working on. She's able to handle herself for whatever reason. Maybe there was something in her past. Maybe her father taught her something. Whatever the case is. Again, I'm not going to sit here and it's like it didn't ruin my day. It was like no big deal. It was like a silly throwaway moment in the episode. So at the end of the day, it was a decent episode. It was like a decompression episode, right? The first 3 episodes built and built and built, and then you had that great climax at the end of episode 3. And then where are you going to go with this episode? The problem I have, though, is that we only have 8 episodes a season, and they're only around 30 to 40 minutes. Is there really time for a filler, in a sense? Because it felt a little bit like a filler episode. It's like it brought it back. We did introduce the character of Cara Dune, and we did establish that even that they were away on this remote planet where they thought they were safe, they're still able to be found, right? They're still tracking the child. We see at the end, there's a Kubaz bounty hunter, and he's coming through the woods, and he gets taken out by Cara Dune. So the Mandalorian comes to the conclusion that, the child is better with me, because it's the only way that I'm going to feel confident to think that he's protected. So, he takes the kid, and they get on the ship, and they take off. And, we're going to end up, who knows now? I mean, we got 4 episodes left. We're halfway through the season. After this episode, which was, to me, the weakest of all 4 so far, you would think now, towards the end here, these last 4, it's going to be like a big 4-episode arc building up to the climax of the season. All in all, we're halfway through this season now. I would say it's a B+. This episode kind of brought it down a little bit for me. It was a solid A as far as I was concerned. It's still really good. This show has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it. Even in this episode, I had a lot of fun with the Baby Yoda scenes. I liked Cara Dune. I loved seeing the chicken walker, right? The ATST. That was really cool. I really like the scene where they go in and Cara Dune and the Mandalorian, they go invade the camp and then they get him all stirred up. And then the ATST is making his way towards the farm, and they're all sitting there waiting for this big standoff that's about to ensue. And you hear it stomping through the woods, and it's like, it's kind of like a Jurassic Park moment. You're looking at the tree line, and you just know that it's coming, and you see those red glowing eyes. And the thing that was funny about this is that you never saw anybody driving the ATST, right? Because when you watched it in Return of the Jedi, you clearly see pilots, people piloting the ATST. You didn't see it. So I'm wondering if with the red glow was that thing set up kind of autonomously, you know, like it was, it had its own artificial intelligence that was controlled remotely, or it was set up to just work alongside the Marauders, the Klaatuinians, and you know they didn't need anybody inside it to drive. Maybe nobody was capable to drive it, so they had it set up so it could self-pilot. I don't know, but I don't recall ever seeing anybody in there. Just those red glowing eyes. But I thought that was kind of a cool look for that. It made it a little bit more evil and intense looking, and that was cool, you know. So it was always good to see. Again, a cool throwback to a vehicle from the original trilogy being brought back and used in a new way. That's always fun to see. So all in all, good episode. You know, we did get some character development. We see the Mandalorian. You know, he's you know, maybe debating hanging it up and kind of staying there, and you know he has a love interest. Who would have thought the Mandalorian would have had a love interest in this show? But you know, these characters that get introduced around him are interesting because they give him more character, right? Because he's behind this mask, and it's like, well, how do you get a character behind a mask to act, to show emotion? You put him with other characters that show different emotions, and then you have him play off of them through, you know, his dialogue or his body English, or you know, or whatever actions he follows through on screen. They play off of how the other person who's playing against them, they emote, and that's how you get a little bit more depth to the character when he's constantly covered from head to toe in armor, and you never get to see any expression whatsoever from him, and his voice doesn't really have a lot of inflection. So it's the situations that he is in and the people that he plays off of that allow him to develop his character further, and I think they've been good in the way that they've handled that, and they put the characters around him for him to play off of. It does show that there's more there than just this cold bounty hunter that, you know, we figured we were just going to get. This whole season was going to be this guy going from bounty to bounty, kicking ass, and it's been a little bit more deeper than that as far as what we thought we were going to get as far as character development was concerned. So it's been a nice surprise so far. I've enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the back end of the season, and geez, you know what? That's really it. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think down below in the comments. Please like this video. It does help with the channel and getting some more eyes over here, so I always do appreciate it. I do love reading the comments and interacting with everybody, and I will talk to you guys in a couple of days. I won't let my next review go as long before I actually put one up as I did with this one, and no holidays or anything like that. And happy belated Thanksgiving to everybody here who watches from the US. I will talk to you guys sometime soon. As always, be happy, be safe, be healthy. Have a great night, guys. Bye-bye.